live in times where women and children are no longer feeling safe around men. A gender that was well known for keeping them safe and keeping them away from the eyes of the danger has now turned to be monsters that is very dangerous towards them. Gender-based violence is a very serious issue as it oppresses human rights and keeps them on their edge every time they go past them and as they fear for their lives. So much disappointment towards men as some of them participate in protests like hashtag say no to gender-based violence, and yet when they get to their homes they turn into something else. We are dealing with wolves in sheep's cloths, and that makes them more dangerous to our society and our upcoming generation as we are trying to teach the young ones how vital it is to treat women with respect. And we also trying to raise a violence-free youth that will stand up for women no matter what and break the cycle of abuse. But we cannot achieve that for as some of the men we know them and we do not take a stand against them because some of them are our friends and we are trying to cover up for them and protect them from going to prison. But guess what? We are not saving them and we are actually worsening them and making them think that what they are doing is right and we are condoning it, of which is wrong. I believe that being true friend to such a person is by getting them help they need, as like going for counseling and learning the hard way by going to prison, where they will be able to do self-introspection about what their action and how wrong it is. The Domestic Violence Act 116 of 1998 makes clear distinctive about domestic violence and how our governments should commit in stopping gender-based violence. I believe relooking this act, as the president has said before, that the act has to be amended and they will pass the law to tighten the bail and the sentencing condition in cases that involve gender-based violence. This will be a message to perpetrators that there is zero tolerance for gender-based violence in this country and that they will face the upper hand of the law. It is that our society take measures that will help bring perpetrators to the hand of the law and help the police in apprehending these criminals who have turned into monsters in our communities. This fight is not only for law enforcement, government, it is also our fight as a whole country. We should take one and raise our voice so that we could eradicate the problem at hand. Let us become a better nation and remove the stone from our society that has caused women and children nothing but pain and misery. Thank you.
I would like to greet my audience at large. My name is Tandongo Bese, and I am a first-year law student at the NWU Northwest University. With gender-based violence disrupting our country, I have written a speech that addresses the issue using logic and truth. Whoever has ears will hear me. The truth unfiltered about gender-based violence. As we continue living in this chaotic world, women continue suffering from all kinds of cruelty, one of them being violence, violating their rights and threatening their existence. Movements all around the world protesting and trying to end gender-based violence, preaching about breaking the silence. But who are we kidding? Focusing on victims will not do much for the cause, as they're at the receiving end of violence. Emotions cloud judgment. It's now time to use logic. Please, don't call me heartless. A wise woman once said, violence against women can only end when the culprits get punished. As much as I agree with the statement, to what extent should the culprits get punished? What's the purpose of the punishment? An eye for an eye? This approach might leave our nation blind. Let's now talk about the justice system of our country that we are rapidly losing faith in. As it is failing us as a country, not to mention women, as now being an officer of the law has a lot to do with earning a salary than actually fighting crime, establishing order, and striving towards a better and safer environment for all. Imprisonment, I will not even touch imprisonment, as now people can boastfully say they can go to jail for you. As men are not afraid of even going to jail because it is their second home, apparently, they say. How comfortable. Let us strike prison off the solutions roll, because it is clearly useless, as the law is very lenient. Unless change is implemented, unless new rehabilitation strategies are implemented, the law is very lenient. And as a result, we have found ourselves in the top statistics of the world when it comes to matters of crime, violence against women, etc. A wise woman once said, "We cannot change what we are not aware of, but once we become aware, we cannot help but change." This statement speaks volumes, as in order to uproot the problem, we need to find the source and deal with the source being men, who are the perpetrators of this crime. Violence against women has a lot to do with men than women. Don't get me wrong. What women go through pains me, as I have been in the midst of it all. And being in the midst of it all, I saw years of damage from a man who committed this hideous crime. Don't get me wrong, I am not saying women should be rehabilitation centers for broken men, but we shouldn't ignore their brokenness being the cause of their actions. And if we tackle the cause, we might defeat the base violence. This is a sensitive topic, and once again, please don't call me heartless. Women have their own separate roles at ending gender-based violence. I am talking to you, mother of a daughter that came to you crying, wanting to leave a marriage. But because in a marriage, in a marriage we persevere. You forced your daughter to stay in a marriage that she was being violated in every way. Until death do us apart, they said, not knowing their husbands would be the death of them. I am talking to you, neighbor, who looks the other way and suddenly becomes deaf as scream trespasses into your homes and into your ear for help with no avail. I'm talking to you, victim, seeing the red flags, thinking he will change, thinking things will get better. I know you're afraid. I know it doesn't get easier, but try getting help for the both of you. In conclusion, in my own subjective view, the nation has forgotten what a woman is and what we mean, and it is our responsibility to remind them of what we are.
Hashtag justice for Inen, a girl who went to the post office and was murdered and raped by one of the workers. Hashtag justice for Kwasa, a girl who was stabbed 3 times by her ex-boyfriend. Hashtag justice for Kotatso Mulefe, a 7-year-old girl who went missing and her burned body was found at a dumping site, and the list goes on. Every day I wake up to tweets about a girl who is missing, a girl who has been raped, or a girl who has been murdered, and I ask myself, am I next? Women are constantly living in fear. We are not safe in our homes, at school, going to the store, or being in a public or private transport. Do you know the feeling of being scared? Your heart is racing and you have so many thoughts in your head of what could possibly happen by just seeing a car slowing down in your direction. Do you know the anxiety we have when we are walking and we see a man walking into our direction? Of course not. You're a man. According to Africa Check, it was found that 42,289 rape cases were recorded in 2019-2020, which means that an average of 116 rape cases recorded daily. Hashtag justice for Tandeka, a woman who was shot outside of her home in Evander, 1 town away from me, 14 minutes away from me. It's getting closer. Am I next? We cannot turn a blind eye. We cannot ignore the fact that this is a serious problem that is growing daily. When will it all stop? Perhaps when it happens to someone close to you, will you then stand up and say, stop gender-based violence? We want justice for Chantal, Wendy, Hlengiwe, Sibahle, Luyanda, and so on. When will it stop? What is the cause of this? My answer is toxic masculinity. The term toxic masculinity is something that has been passed on from generation to generation, and men carry it unknowingly. You will hear a man say, if you don't drink, you're not a man. I know that the police force is not the solution for dealing with this type of violence because it is more about attitude and behavior. The least a police officer can do is to respond to victims quickly. They still lack dedication and don't have trained personnel to attend to such matters, to give correct information. Some police officers humiliate victims or they are not willing to help them when they go there and report a case. On top of that, police officers should not increase the statistics of gender-based violence. Stop gender-based violence.
Good day everyone, my name is Nicole Adams and I will be speaking about gender-based violence in modern South Africa, especially in terms of Ubuntu. Gender-based violence is a commonly used abstract term, yet we hear or observe it every day of our lives. It is not restricted to a region or town, but it happens all across the world and impacts both men and women, but profoundly women and girls. How easy it is to imagine living in a world where women and girls have no need to worry for their safety. Without a doubt, it can be said that gender-based violence stems from inequality and patriarchy. Patriarchy can already be spotted in the Bible, in the book of Esther, where the king, whose spirit was jolly of the wine he had drunk, ordered his wife to display her beauty in front of him and his guests. However, beautiful Queen Vashti refused, and the king became angry, punishing her for lack of obedience. He then commanded the regions that men should dominate their households and instantly replaced Queen Vashti with Queen Esther. Moral of this story lies in men abusing their power over women. The definition of gender-based violence, according to Women for Women, states that gender-based violence is violence that is directed at an individual based on his or her biological sex or gender identity. It includes physical, sexual, verbal, emotional, and psychological abuse, threats, coercion, and economic or educational deprivation, whether occurring in public or private life. Violence can be against the LGBTI community as well as between intimate partners. I believe that the most underrated yet overrated violence occurs between intimate partners. Yet society labels this type of relationship as toxic, or he deserves the best and she deserves what's coming at her for not speaking up or acting right. Overpowering sexual intimacy and emotional abuse are the most common factors in this type of relationship. Domestic violence occurs in any dysfunctional household where there is a close bond between the victim and the perpetrator. According to South Africa's National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, South Africa is the most unsafe place to be a female. I am not a feminist, nor sexist, nor man-shaming, but I believe that justice has to be served and that all vulnerable groups of our country have to be taken under wing and be well educated about things that too many people are afraid to take a stand for. It is of common knowledge that gender-based violence has increased since the lockdown period. President Cyril Ramaphosa and media considers gender-based violence to be South Africa's second and real pandemic. Specifically addressed legislative provisions such as the Domestic Violence Act, the Criminal Law Amendment, and the Protection from Harassment Act protects women and children against abuse. Gender-based violence against women and children has created a domino effect in South Africa over the past few years, which refuses to stop, and the only ones who created it can, in the true sense of the word, really stop it. Ubuntu is a Nguni term, which means humanity, and defined by common folks as jy is 'n mens deur 'n ander mens. I am because we are, and Ubuntu Ngubuntu Ngabantu. The general questions we should ask ourselves is, how do you harm someone when you don't want to be harmed like that? Do you even have a heart? Where is your humanity? The only logical explanation for these questions are that we are all human beings, and no two beings think exactly the same, and if they do, they probably do not exist in the real world. I hereby conclude by asking, how could a person possibly be a person through another person if that same person who created you wants to harm you? Why do you possibly want to deny or harm yourself when you're not suffering from some kind of mental disease? Thank you.
Maya Yamanouchi defines self-respect as a confidence and pride in knowing that your behavior is both honorable and dignified. If you harass or vilify someone, you do not just disrespect them, but yourself also. Street harassment, sexual violence, sexual harassment, gender-based violence, and racism are all acts committed by a person who lacks self-respect. Respect yourself by respecting others. Greetings to all. I am Salome Kukungobeni, and my speech is about gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is one of the most remarkable human rights violations that involves the hurting to a person of a different gender. It is deeply rooted in different forms such as physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, sex trafficking, and intimate partner violence. GBV is mostly experienced by females, but it can also be experienced by males and members of the LGBTQIA. South Africa is one of the high-ranking countries of gender-based violence in the world. Statistics show that a woman is killed every 3 hours in South Africa, and in most cases, they are killed by their male intimate partners. Gender-based violence does not only affect the female's mental health, but it also affects the country's economy as it lowers the productivity and the funds related to healthcare and education. When the national lockdown was implemented, the SAPS received about 2,300 gender-based violence calls within 5 days, and the National Abuse Helpline received 120,000 calls within the first 3 weeks of the national lockdown. President Cyril Ramaphosa recently introduced 3 bills that aim to provide justice for the victims, and he also announced the Emergency Response Action Plan, which aims to provide adequate care and healing for the victims. Rape culture is an umbrella term used to normalize rape and sexual violence. An example of rape culture is defending someone because of their celebrity status. Social media is a very powerful tool to provide gender-based violence awareness, and there are programs such as Tulasana and Skoko Success Program to help prevent gender-based violence. In conclusion, gender-based violence is a factor that affects us in a negative way. And also, it's high time we work together by signing those petitions, donating to gender-based violence organizations, and spreading our awareness. I choose to be active. How about you? Thank you.
It is time for men in South Africa to stop advocating for their innocence and start making a difference in action. We have a responsibility. A woman is a precious dignitary in the creation of mankind. Her presence secures the establishment of a progressive growth in the planet. In South Africa, her presence is threatened daily by her loved ones. The people who are meant to protect her inhibit her dignity to the ground. Her presence is stamped off to the ground by a man who's supposed to take care of her. Her beauty is toppled over with insecurities broadcasted by his male counterpart, who is supposed to be her legionnaire and knight in shining armor. Why does the crown of our earth has to experience such tragedy over such beauty of a woman? The crown of our earth in South Africa is fragranced by darkness and mourns brutality of patriarchy that threatens the existence of a woman. As a result of such disparity, every 3 hours a woman is killed. Every 24 hours, 8 women are killed. Every 7 days, 224 women are killed. Every year, 2,688 graves are prepared to bury the existence of our women in South Africa. Why does the crown of our earth have to experience such tragedy over the beauty of a woman? We are persecuted by the world for not being able to protect our women. We are told that a woman in South Africa is 5 times higher to experience domestic violence than in any place in the world except a region that is facing a war. Are we at war with women, my male counterparts? What has happened to being the defender of our households and soldiering to protect our families? Why are we persecuted for classifications that are influenced by war terrors? What is it that we are not doing it right? Why does the crown of our earth has to experience such tragedy over the beauty of a woman? It is only in South Africa when a woman is being beaten, we as neighbors respond by claiming that her anguish is not a problem. We abolish our consciousness and sleep peaceful when her tears fall off the ground and the earth only comforts her by drying her tears. Why does the crown of our earth has to experience such tragedy over beauty of a woman? What has happened in her household? Ria is shot in toilet and is mistaken to be a criminal. If our women are not safe in the toilet, that is in the interior of our homes, how dangerous are the possibilities they face when they step outside of their home premises? Why does the crown of our earth has to experience such tragedy over the beauty of a woman? Daughters are raped by their fathers and security is threatened and cornered to keep demarcation of silence and resilience of what they face. Uncles terrorize their nieces and play antagonist roles in our families by unending forms of abuse. Women are treated to stay afloat in submission, or else they face the insubordination of economic sanction. Her dignity is tangled by babies as a trap, and in her act to defy her role to not submit to patriarchal structure, her lover does not uphold the provision of maintaining her and the children. She attempts to go to her native family parents for protection. However, she is told to go back to the marriage and endure hardships compressed by patriarchy. Her own parents tell her that she cannot embarrass them to the community by coming to them each time the marriage faces a challenge. It is only in South Africa that a woman is told by her parents to go and face abuse, for they cannot pay lobola back, and it is part of a culture for male dominance to be normative. It is only in South Africa where parents bury their daughters alive in coffins and cry at funeral that domestic violence perpetrators should be jailed. Where were you leading her when she came in anguish, seeking shelter and protection? You led her into the lion's den and you cry for state justice. Where were you people when she was seeking an arm of justice in your sanctuary? Her body was treated as a property by an exchange of a transaction of a monetary value for a worth. She is now silent in the grave. Why does the crown of our earth has to experience such tragedy over the beauty of our women? As a young man growing in the society, foundations to respect and restore the dignity of our women has to be in action. I live by regrets for lived by incidents that happened when I was only 7 by age. It was an hour after sunset when my sister was held as a hostage, during which atrocious acts of violence were infringed upon her body. To my regrettable immaturity and limited knowledge of my minority in infantry, I handed her over to a perpetrator who spoke in a sweet, innocent voice by an exchange of 5 rand, in which he informed me to head home. My sister in silence attempting to signal me with non-vocal gestures, but to my maturity, I left her desolate into the lion's den. I apologize to River Stenkamp, Rianem Hojana, Nabi Sam Quantela, Naledi Panindao, Lindela Bailey, Altertia Korki, and I also recognize every woman who has suffered the consequence of gender-based violence, whether still breathing or in death. I apologize on behalf of every man, for we have failed to protect our women. As a result of such disparity, the crown of our earth seems to earthen the existence of a woman in a grave by the misconduct of patriarchy that subsists women to be lower by status of their gender. My sincere condolences. It is time for men in South Africa to stop advocating for their innocence and start making a difference in action. We have a responsibility. I thank you.
The United Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, Article 1 states that violence against women means any act of gender-based violence that results in, or is most likely to result in, physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty occurring in private or public life. What is a world where it is now more dangerous to be a woman than a soldier? What is a world where a female succumbs to men because she houses a uterus and men is unable to comprehend the magnificence behind the fact that she bleeds each month yet still brings forth life? What has this world become where children no longer fear bogus monsters that are figments of their imagination, but rather their own fathers because daddy beats mommy each time he has had a little too many to drink? Greetings and salutations to one and all. I am Zanele Mguni, and today I speak on the notion of gender-based violence. When we take a moment to look at gender imbalance in modern South Africa, there lies a prominently paradoxical situation. Although South Africa's transition to liberal democracy has alluded to a greater official recognition of gender rights in accordance to the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, there is, however, an increasing restriction and infringement to the right to physical freedom and bodily integrity of women, children, as well as the LGBTQI community by rampant crime rates, rape, as well as other forms of sexual assault. Men in our country have declared a war on our women. This was a statement made by the President of the Republic of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, during his televised address on the evening of the 48th day of the national lockdown. This was a call for concern that we all should heed. It is of great preponderance that we account and we fight injustices that are embedded within the dynamics of gender-based violence. It should not have to be a question of #am I next, but rather #what can I do next. It starts with just a single voice, and it is in this regard I would like to close in the words of Gracia Machel, and I quote, "We need to stop speaking of violence against women as statistics. In actual fact, each of these women have a name, an identity. Let us find a place and write each and every one so that they are never forgotten."
How long and how many more? We are asking ourselves questions with no answers. We are asking ourselves why? Why us? Why now? Coexistence does not exist, and GBV is a disease. For that, we need an antidote. And while you're looking for an antidote, your ear is all that I need. Oh men, show us your manhood. Family Manifesto. The very nature of headship. Gender protection should be one of the morals you uphold. I wonder if you've noticed that Eve's lineage of descendants are doomed. Or maybe you're just using your own evil. If that's so, we humble ourselves before you, O lion. Stop roaring and hear us out. We did not come for civil war. Ours is a war of attrition. We see your potential. We see that you are able to do as you please with our bodies. Your evil ways have changed the way we are supposed to see you. You are supposed to be seen as the very nature of headship. You are supposed to be seen as Family Manifesto. You are supposed to be seen as a leader. but you consume us like the eagle that hunts in the wilderness. Truly the ground is gritted with teeth. People who fought and died for equality, people who fought and died for gender violence, they must be turning in their graves. I just hope you find peace and return to your roots.
The new humanitarian defines the term gender-based violence as violence that targets individuals or groups on the basis of their gender. Allow me to define it for you as a female resident in a country with the highest rates of GBV in the world, where in the first 3 weeks of lockdown alone, more than 120,000 victims of GBV and femicide had already been recorded. It is waking up every morning with a missing poster trending on social media with a different face. It is walking towards the taxi rank and hearing cooing and cat whistles throughout the journey, apparently meant to boost your confidence, but all it does when it reaches your ears is make you cringe and pull down your skirt because can they not see you as more than just a sexual object? It is getting into a taxi and being the last to be dropped off because, sis, you're beautiful, mind sharing a number. And you dare say no. You do not even reach your destination. It is being scared to go to work because your boss forces himself on you in order to earn a promotion you clearly deserve. It is being scared to go collect a package by the post office because he might not even make it back home. It is being scared to inform your baby daddy of your pregnancy because he might just leave you hanging, literally, on a tree with your unborn baby. It is being scared to leave a relationship because you might not make it out alive. But staying does not make a difference. It is a young wife shot dead in front of her workplace and another shot in the bathroom because she was thought to be a burglar. It is a small child being abducted from her bed and another snatched out the window when a car gets to a red traffic light. In summary, it is being a woman in a world full of angry men. And no, women and children are not the only victims to this monster. It is also a dancer that is being attacked and stabbed by a 14-year-old because he is too feminine, and his friend who is sexually assaulted because she needed to be reminded which gender she belongs to. It is living in a world where patriarchy is taught from birth, where women are ex officio submissive objects. How will all of this be eradicated under our current police force that responds faster to calls about a car being sold after hours than to a call about screams and gunshots coming from next door? Where our Minister of Police calls human trafficking and publicity stunt. Where our leadership structure is more concerned about distributing and spending 500 billion rand than to attend to GBV. Besides amending a few acts, what has the government really done to confront the elephant in the room? We refuse to be content with news channels broadcasting funerals of GBV victims with the presence of politicians, while hashtags are trending on their social media pages, which, by the way, will only trend for a week until we're back to singing Symphony 9 next week. We would appreciate less tweeting and more action from our leaders, less cowards and more real men who can admit they have problems and ask for help. More parents raising kids that understand equal gender power relations and equal opportunities. We need more men committing to protecting women as though they're their own blood. We need a change, and it needs to start with men. My name is Kitsopofetsi Muchikwane, and I say no to gender-based violence. What do you say?